that don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my lovely, beautiful, and talented co-host, Melissa.
Oh my gosh. I had nothing to that.
I'm actually really excited about our show today because there's some aspects of marketing that we as a company, as a business, as real estate agent, as real estate investors are really, really dumb at. And I'm hoping to get a micro class in how to be better, or at least learning what it is, because in this realm, I don't even know what I don't know. And with that being said, I'm super thrilled to introduce Dan Barrett. He's the head nerd at AdWords Nerds, and is a really smart guy. And I hope he's going to be able to educate us on something that we know very little about.
Or at least direct us to who can help.
Yes. Dan, thank you so much for coming on our show today. We're excited to have you here. I know it might seem like a topic that's not too interesting, but we're super interested.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the introduction. That was awesome. It's certainly, when you talk about online marketing to people, it can be a little intimidating and can feel a little ominous. There's lots of bits and bobs and stuff, but I am of the belief that I think online marketing, particularly what I do, which is primarily focused on Google in one way or another, I think of it just as a window into understanding the way the world works, right? Google is a complex system. You have all these different players bouncing off each other, competing with one another. You've got all these technological layers on top of that. And if you can understand the basic principles to help you navigate that, those are the same basic principles that help you to navigate business in general, life in general, markets, even relationships, if you really want to push the domain of expertise a little bit far. So,
well, we can all use help there.
Yes, I mean, me too. But I just think it's one of those things where, everything's a microcosm of everything else if you really dig down into it. So I find it endlessly fascinating. Hopefully I can make it interesting to other folks as well. So yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to get into it.
Sure. Well, I think one, if you could just, maybe pretend that we were people that were not very technologically savvy. I know it's a stretch, but can you, one, explain to our audience what AdWords Nerds is, and then maybe we can just take it from there, like the basics and building up, and then we're doing some we are doing some like Google PPC. I'm not sure if that's tied into what you're doing, but I'm sure we'll have a ton of questions for you.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that is a wonderful question, a wonderful way to dig into it. So AdWords Nerds is my company. We are a digital marketing agency. We work only with investors and some agents. So I should say there's a couple agents in there, but primarily with investors. Been doing that for over a decade now. And our primary focus is and has been online marketing in Google. Now, the company is called AdWords Nerds because when I started it, Google's advertising network was called AdWords. It is no longer called AdWords. The company remains AdWords Nerds, but now it's just called Google Ads. In Google Ads, you can think about it. If you go on Google and you type in, hey, I want to sell a house, you're going to see a variety of things there in Google. Typically, the top 4 things that you see, the first 4 things, those are ads, search engine ads, right? And people will call that PPC. It's the same thing. PPC stands for pay per click marketing. And the idea there is that when you click one of those first 4 entries in Google, when you type in search, sell my house fast or whatever, when you click that ad, that advertiser is going to pay some amount to Google, right? And so that's why it's pay per click. So if you say like, hey, I'm doing PPC, really what it means is you're running online ads. And if you say, hey, I'm doing PPC in Google, that is primarily what we help clients do. Now you can also do what's called SEO or search engine optimization. That's everything you do in Google to make your website show up that isn't paying them, right? So for example, if I open up a Google ad account today and I say, hey, I want to show up for sell my house fast in my market, I pick the target area I want to show up for or whatever, I can start doing that today, right? I can start showing up basically, theoretically within 24 hours. If I want to do that without paying, I've got to do all that work that people associate with SEO, which is typically things like blogging, building links back to the website, making your website is, well updated and, checking all the boxes in terms of what you're supposed to do technically. So those are the 2 big domains in online marketing. You've got SEO, right? You're not paying for every click. You're doing all the work to make sure your website shows up high in Google. And then you've got PPC or Google Ads, which is I'm going to open up an advertising account. I'm going to pay Google. I'm going to target certain keywords, and then hopefully I'm going to show up in those top 4 spots. So that's the basic divide there. So yeah, sounds like you're doing Google Ads. That's generally what we focus on. Although we do Facebook ads and Bing ads and SEO and all that other stuff as well. Does that make sense as like a kind of a general divide?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that somebody would have been able to have this exact conversation with me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and said, hey man, this is all it means. Yeah. Okay. So one, I know that you're a big company and you're operating in different markets all across the country. Is there any one keyword that is working for all markets, or is it really more about testing a set of keywords or negative keywords and then applying that to each of these individual niche markets with these individual investors that you're working with?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. So one of the weird things about the industry that I'm in is how rapidly it changes. And the thing to keep in mind is that the industry changes more rapidly than the standard advice given to people does. So here's what I mean. It used to be that if you were an investor, there's pretty much a list of keywords that you would want to go after. That's going to be the thing for the vast majority of markets, right? And so Google Ads was really a game of which keywords do I choose? And do I target sell my house or sell my house fast? Or sell my house really fast, and the tiny little keywords, little tiny changes you would make would have a big impact on what you end up paying, right? And so the game was always, okay, I want to pick the keywords that are going to put me in front of people, but my competitors aren't picking them, and yada, yada, yada. It was this whole kind of cat and mouse game of who's got the best keywords. And that's generally what you will see if you look at advice given to investors about PPC. A lot of it is about keyword selection. And I think that is primarily because it gives people a sense of control. And I'm not saying keyword selection is not important, but Google has significantly changed under the hood. And so the utility of having a really specific keyword list is actually very small. So what ends up happening is, let's say now in Google, you type in okay, I want to get in front of sell my house fast as a keyword. Okay. Now, what Google is going to do is they don't say literally, okay, if someone types in sell my house fast, you will show up. But if they type in sell my house faster or something, you won't, because that's how it used to work. You've got to type in exactly where you want to show up. Now what's happened is that Google is essentially this giant machine learning algorithmic, I just imagine it as a giant pulsating brain. Okay. And the way that this brain works is not, hey, if you didn't type in this specific word, I'm not going to show your ad. Instead, what it's trying to do is understand what you meant by that. So if you say like, hey, I want to target sell my house fast, Google's like, okay, I got it. What you're looking for is motivated sellers. So if they type in sell my house fast, yeah, I'm going to show you, but I'm also going to show you for if they type in sell my house fast, like Oklahoma City, if that's where you're in, right? Or if they type in we buy houses, I kind of know that like we buy houses, it's connected to sell my house fast. So I'm going to show you for both. So what's ended up happening is that over time, there's way more overlap, regardless of what keywords you chose, between you and your competitors. And this is primarily because it's good for Google. It's not necessarily good for advertisers. And so the game that we're all playing has shifted very much from who's got the best list of keywords, because all lists of keywords are starting to kind of merge. And I am of the belief that Google is very deliberately moving to a future where there are no keywords. You just give them your website and they'll figure it out, right? That's where they're going. So they're moving away from the kind of the keyword era. And instead where we're moving towards is the advantage in the market goes to the person who gives data the superior data set. So feeds more data back into Google so Google can understand when you're making money, when the leads are motivated, when they're going to appointment, all that stuff. So who can do that really efficiently, and who's better at converting those leads on the back end. One of the things I always point out to people is that if you're going to do Google Ads today, you don't have to do this, but it's a big advantage to be able to deal with leads that want retail. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that, hey, look, investing can be 99% of your business. Maybe you don't want to do listings, blah, blah, blah. You only do a few. But if those few that you do end up underwriting your ad costs, you now have a significant advantage in terms of what you can pay for those leads. And that's going to give you consistent advantage over your competitors over time, right? So it becomes these things that it's a little bit more amorphous. It's a little bit more about how good are you at the business end of things rather than how good are you at the ad end of things, right? So it's gotten more complex for sure. It's gotten more difficult in some ways. At the same time, it's got easier in other ways because you don't need to have a list of 5,000 keywords in order to get started. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like and with the way that they're transitioning, I guess, before you could just have a simple form, nothing, name, address, phone number. That was your entire website. People would click over, fill it out, and then go. But now if we're looking at everybody has the keywords, like you said, what's going to be the difference between the lead converting versus not converting is capturing that information once they get to your site. So it seems like your actual website is more important now than it used to be.
In many ways, right? So in many ways, like there used to be a lot more control on the advertiser's end over specifically what you wanted to do. And some of that control is still there. Some of it has shifted to different parts of the lead capture process. But some of it's just gone away and it's not coming back, right? And so what ends up happening is the prices of the market in Google, because Google is a market. You can think of it as operating very similarly to something like the stock market or whatever, right? So you think about the prices in that market are going to go up and down over time. They're going to change literally hour to hour, day to day. And so you don't have the most control over necessarily what you want to pay if you're going to generate a really consistent flow of leads. So the way that you end up getting a higher ROI is exactly like you're saying. If for every 10 people that land on my website, I get 4 leads, while my competitors on average get 3. Over time, I will eat them alive, right? Like I will eat that market. I'm getting a 25% higher ROI on my lead generation system than my competitors are. That's not a competitive advantage that anybody can handle over time, right? I mean, if that stays that way, that's it, you win, right? And so it's very much become a matter of, yes, I always say, like, I think as an industry in general, when you look at real estate investing, you look at the history of how real estate investors have marketed over time, right? The type of marketing that investors have used forever has simply relied on, let me tell you what a real estate investor does, right? Like look at the average yellow letter, even think about bandit signs. What do bandit signs do? They say, I buy houses. That's all it says, right? Like I buy houses. Who buys houses? Dan buys houses. We buy houses. You know, it's like it's all it is, right? It's a description of the business model. You look at a yellow letter. Hey, I saw your house. I want to buy it. I'll do all the paperwork. You know, you don't have to make the repairs. It's just a description of the pitch. That's all it is, right? And that kind of marketing thrives in an industry where people don't know that investors exist, right? Because that marketing is essentially answering the question, hey, you know, I have a house, I want to sell it, but I don't know what to do. And the marketing says, hey, did you ever think about selling to an investor? That's all it is, right? But we have shifted, like when we jumped on this podcast, right? And you were like describing your business to me, you were like, we do pretty much everything you might see on HGTV. And that's the thing. Everybody's got HGTV, right? Like everybody in the country knows what an investor is, more or less. People understand like what a flipper is, right? That's not a thing that was true 20 years ago.
Right.
And so the industry as a whole has shifted away from, hey, my marketing is just going to tell you what an investor does, to instead, my marketing has to tell you why you should choose me instead of anyone else. Like I have to assume you know what an investor is, or at least spend less time educating you on that. Instead, what I have to say is, hey, you should sell to me rather than the other 15 investors who sent you postcards this week. And so when you look at investor websites, when you look at investor marketing, whether it's SMS marketing, advertising, whatever, they all reflect this shift towards, hey, here's why you should sell to me. I'm local, I'm legit, I've got the background, here's the houses I've built, like whatever it is. Everyone needs that hook instead of just saying, give me your email, right? That's not enough anymore. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think our marketing assets, a website or an ad is just simply a type of marketing asset, have to reflect that underlying shift so that we convert more of these people and therefore get a much higher ROI in this type of marketing.
Sure. That's super helpful and described in a way that we haven't heard on the podcast or at a lot of the masterminds that we attend. People aren't mentioning that. And one of the things that they do say, I think inferring that, is that real estate marketing is like 20 years behind every other industry when it comes to marketing. So you breaking it down like that is super beneficial and really can change the way that investors look at marketing moving forward. Okay, all of that being said, how is AdWords Nerds helping real estate investors capture more leads or get it for a more sustainable ad spend? With our online marketing, we are paying an awful lot and we are getting very, very few leads in. Now, the leads that we're getting tend to be actually motivated because they're coming to us instead of us fishing for them. I understand those benefits, but how are you guys helping real estate investors bring more leads in than the AdWords or the Google Ads companies? What are you guys doing different? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, I will say, there's a lot of really good companies working in this space right now. I think when we started, there weren't really anybody, right? But now we have competitors that I think almost universally are pretty darn good. So I don't mean to imply that like we're the only smart people in the industry. That's never true. And one of the things I always point out is if someone says everyone else that I compete with is an idiot and I'm the only smart one, you should probably avoid that person. But there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting that we do particularly. And I'll start broad and then I'll get more specific technically. I mean, I think generally our pitch to people is usually like, this is all that we do. Like we don't have any other types of clients. This is all we've done for 10 years. Everyone on my team, this is what they do full time. Right. And so there's a lot that we learn and can do purely as a function of that level of focus. Right. We can test things a lot quicker than our competitors on average, simply because I'm like, hey, if I want to test something on, let's say, an Investor Carrot site or an REI Black Book site or something like that, I can pull 10, 20 clients to do that today. right? If I need to. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that we are working very hard on the data aggregation end of it. I, sometime last year, very much realized that in the next 5 years or so, what's going to happen is that the cost of application of what used to be literally, I mean this literally, military grade artificial intelligence, machine learning tools, things like that, that's just open to everybody now at like $20 a month, if that. Right. You can right now apply an artificial intelligence model to a Google sheet of, seller data that literally would have taken MIT millions of dollars to do 5 years ago. Right. I mean, it's just is the level of progression in that market, that part of the world is just really hard to fathom. And when you are in a world where the marginal cost of an application of a technology like this is just plummeting to zero faster than we can really comprehend, what ends up being the constraint is not who's got access to the better AI, because we'll all have access to these really powerful AIs. The problem is who's got the data to feed it. That's the problem, right? If you are just getting around to trying to catalog your lead data in a way that a machine learning model can actually process, and you're starting that today, you're 5 to 10 years behind. So that is not an insurmountable obstacle, but it is a significant one. And so our model for the last several years has been, we aggregate data from all of our clients, anonymized. Like, we don't take anyone's personal lead data. We don't share lead data to clients, but we want to be able to train an algorithm, not just on like what's happening in your account, but what's happening in everyone's account across the country. Mm-hmm. Because the smarter we make our own personal algorithm that we use within Google, the better we're going to be at bidding for leads that actually close deals, and the better our cost per deal acquisition is going to be. And over time, our bet is that is a really, really difficult advantage to overcome.
Yeah.
The final thing I'll say is just that part of our company DNA for a really long time has been, we are laser focused on our particular industry, but I don't follow any online marketing people. Like, I don't listen to online marketing people. I don't listen to online marketing gurus. I don't know what they're working on. The stuff that we pull from primarily is from other industries. And typically we will find that the application of mental models from outside industries to what we do radically improves our results, and nobody else even has any idea what we're talking about. I'll give you an example. The whole thing I was talking about earlier, where I was like, oh, the industry is shifting from a type of marketing that just explains what investors do to a type of marketing that says you have to, why choose me among other investors. I didn't make that up, right? That is a model of the advertising industry written by Eugene Schwartz in the 50s, right? It's not a new idea. The problem is that people forget what the previous generations before them worked on. I'll give you another example. One classic problem that people run into in Google Ads is they will see, let's see, a couple weeks of down performance, panic, and make all kinds of changes in their account. But the problem is, because Google Ads is a complex system like the stock market, you have to expect that you will have some down seasons and up seasons that are purely random. And we know from studies of investor behavior, like in the stock market, that if you sell when your account is going down and you buy when it's going up, you will like totally underperform just doing nothing, right? So we know for a fact that people tend to react to downswings in their data and make really bad decisions. Well, how do you counteract that? Like, at a company level, if I want my managers to make decisions based on what's happening in your account, but I don't want them to underperform, how do I help them separate signal from noise? And that was a really complicated problem that I really struggled with until I realized that literally in the 60s, W. Edwards Deming created statistical process control, created a very simple mathematical formula for something called a process behavior chart that you can literally just put on a chart, calculate the average, count 1 or 2 sigma, like probability above or below that, and actually see very scientifically what is signal and what is noise for any metric you want to choose. And that has completely radicalized over the last like year and a half how we manage our accounts. But the thing is, Nobody in online marketing remembers that Deming even was alive, right? Even though he was one of the most influential like manufacturing process improvement minds in American history. Like no one remembers that. So for us, it's like our company, one of our company values is we are constantly looking at outside sources. Who's really good in law? Who's really good in medicine? Like what processes really work in restaurant service or something like that? And then trying to apply those best practices to what we do. And I think that gives us a really sizable advantage that the other people just find very hard to replicate. So that's my pitch for AdWords Nerds. In actuality, there's a lot of people doing really good work in this industry right now. You can find a lot of really awesome people, but I'm proud of our team and proud of what we do. And I think we do it pretty darn well.
Awesome. Well, before, I know we're running a little bit long, but before I let you go, the question, and this is something that we've ran into with every single digital marketer, digital marketing company, Facebook ads, PPC. How do I know as the consumer that you're doing a good job? Because a lot of this stuff is so far outside of my wheelhouse that I'm not even sure if I can tell you if you're doing a good job. Because to me, the way that I evaluate it is the lead that you're giving me or that you're creating for me. Am I able to convert that and turn it into revenue for my company? Enough so to pay for the ads, bare minimum, pay for the ads that you're providing or the leads that you're providing. And when we have these conversations, they tell me things about, well, you know, we got
impressions,
2,700 impressions. Oh, yeah. Great. Can I feed my family on an impression? Because I don't know how to do that yet. How do I know if the people in your space are doing a good job, bad job, and how should I be measuring that?
Yeah, that is such a good question. So, and I was literally just thinking about this because, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, the cobbler's son has no shoes or whatever, right? It's like, we're great at ads. We're terrible at running our own ads. So I have always hired an agency to run ads to get clients for my agency, right? I never do that in-house because I'm like, I don't do a good job of it. I know
sure.
That, right? Literally, I have an agency that I'm working with now, and I will tell you literally the number that I track to measure their performance over time. I'll give you like a specific metric. To back up though, before we do that, I will say that what you're asking is essentially, and you want to like get specific on the question. The question is not, does this thing produce good leads for me? Because you could also run ads yourself, even if you say like, well, I would do really poorly. You could, right? The real question is, does hiring the manager get you utility, get you value above their fee, right? More than their fee, above what you could get on your own? Mm-hmm. And generally what I would say is that I actually think that over time, that's gotten harder and harder to do because these advertising companies are making it easier and easier to set up like your own campaign, right? Google will call you sometimes like multiple times a week and be like, let us set up campaigns for you, right? Like they want you to do that. So the question is, does the manager get you money, essentially revenue, right? Above what you'd be able to do on your own and above their fee, okay? And that can be a difficult question to pry apart. There's two things that I look at. One is qualitative and one is quantitative. The qualitative one is if you send me a report or something, right? You send me, you know, like you said, 1,000 impressions, right? Okay. There's two ways I think about that in terms of like that are just kind of, you could call it whatever, more fuzzier kind of thinking. Which one is explain to me how this helps me. Exactly like you said, can I feed my family with impressions? And no, you can't. Impressions just mean someone saw the ad, right? So I'm like, okay, I got to put a billboard up tomorrow. A lot of people would see it. Doesn't mean I made any money, right? So that impressions are important for the manager for a variety of different reasons, but they're not important to you necessarily. You might want to know that they went up, but it doesn't help you feed your family, right? So why is this important to me? And then two, explain your decision-making to me. I spend time early with every agency I've ever hired. When we get on a call or to send me a report and they're like, well, I think this is good because XYZ or things are improving, blah, blah, blah. And this is because we did XYZ thing. I will usually say, that's really cool. Explain your reasoning. Like, just explain to me how it's connected. And what I'm listening for is, do they understand that these things are complicated and numbers will go up or down randomly all the time? And I'll give you a really good example. It's a real world example from military training. There was a study done in the Army, and they basically, there's like Daniel Kahneman's one of the most famous like cognitive scientists of all time, did a study in the Army, and they basically tested like 2 different ways of trying to improve like accuracy scores on like a rifle range, right? So you imagine like there's the students, they do, they shoot at these targets. And then the drill instructors would have 2 different types of interventions. One was they would just scream at them, just in your face, negative reinforcement, you stink, blah, 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 right? And the other one was they would do like kind of like more hand holding, more instructive, right? So you've got basically good cop, bad cop, right? Or in this case, good Army drill instructor, bad Army drill instructor. And what they found was that, yeah, the hand holding stuff did well, but what they found also was that all the screaming and the yelling and stuff, right? Also, everybody like in that screaming and yelling group, the people who got really poor performances improved after they were yelled at. And the idea here is that if you ask the drill instructors, they're like, look, we know that yelling works because that guy got a poor performance. I yelled at him and he got better. But the thing is that statistically, if you're having a really poor performance, your next performance is more likely to be closer than average if you do nothing at all. And so the drill instructors connect the yelling and the improvement, even though there is no connection there. And so if my ad manager says, well, your impressions were really low, so I changed X, Y, Z, and now the impressions are better, I'm like, great, how much better? And how do you know that they're better because you changed something versus the fact that they probably would have just gotten better anyway because they were low when you did something about it, right? So that's one. It's like, explain your reasoning to me. How smart are you about how these things work? And I don't even mean technically. I just mean like how the world works, right? How certain are you? And a lot of times, the more certain they are, the less confident I am. Because I'm like, there's a kind of world where it's like, certainty is not necessarily correlated with strength of character. Anyway, the final thing I'll put out there is, here is a very real metric you can track. And this is actually the metric I use to track my agency. It's the metric I use to track everyone on my team. It's the metric I track basically everything that we do. And the metric comes from theory of constraints, which is again comes from manufacturing. So again, this is from something from the 80s. We're just applying to PPC. And it's called QT over OE. And you can use this metric to literally track performance in any part of your business. It doesn't have to be PPC, but QT over OE. QT stands for quality throughput. And you can kind of think of this as like, what's the ultimate thing you're trying to produce and what's a good version of that? So for example, if I was going to track QT for your investing business, I would not track leads. I would track appointments. How many appointments? I don't want conversions. I don't want leads. I want appointments. Because I can get 1,000 leads. If I don't get any appointments, I don't care, right? So what is a quality outcome? So you measure that, the quality outcome. The OE, so you imagine it's QT over OE, so that means divide. QT divided by OE. OE is the operating expense. What did we spend in order to generate it? So for example, let's say I was tracking an advertising account for an investing business. I want to track, let's say, appointments, or however you qualify leads, but let's say appointments. I generated 10 appointments. Okay. Now I'm going to divide that over my operating expense, which is the amount we spent on ads and the amount we spent on ads management. So let's say I spent $2,000 on ads, $1,000 on ad management. That is $3,000. So my QT over OE metric is 10, the number of appointments, divided by 3,000. That gives me a number of 0.033. That's my number. If that number improves, meaning goes up, I am happy, because it either means the number of quality leads is going up, or it means the operating expense is going down. So for example, I could raise my operating expense by getting more appointments, or by hiring a cheaper agency, or by lowering my ad spend and keeping the lead flow consistent. So it allows us to track improvement in multiple different ways, because if you tie yourself to just one metric, you can create weird sort of incentives that don't always work out. So QT over OE, you can Google it. I didn't make it up. It's a thing. But that is by far, I think, one of the most powerful metrics you can track in any part of your business. Customer service, deals done, doesn't matter. Quality throughput over operating expense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I see so many places where we can apply that in our business outside of the ads stuff, but in our actual business. And then it's about tracking that consistently and watching the trend of that percentage or of that decimal. Is it going up and down? Are you getting better or worse? I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Dan, that was a ton of information, and I think it was solid gold all the way through. Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
So where can we send people if they want to find out more about you, more about AdWords Nerds? You know, if they're interested in what you're doing, where can we send them?
Yeah, so AdWordsNerds.com is the website. So ADWORDS nerds.com. You can Google it. You'll find all sorts of stuff there. I also have a podcast, which is called REI Marketing Nerds. You can find that anywhere fine podcasts are sold. Those are usually the best places. I will say that on our website, I have, and you can Google this, you can find it. It's called like the ultimate guide to PPC for real estate investors. Just Google that. You'll find it'll be the first thing. It's essentially like a 40,000 word beginner's guide to doing Google ads. That'll take you from absolutely nothing to having an account up and running and generating leads. And I would say, like, it's significantly better than most people's paid programs. It's totally free. You don't have to give me your email. It's just on the web. So you can search for Ultimate Guide to PPC for Real Estate Investors and find that, or just head over to AdWordsNerds.com and we will be there.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate having the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.